Let's talk best LinkedIn outreach strategy for 2024. Today, in this video, what we're going to give you is a 4-part framework where you can use LinkedIn to secure meetings with some of those busy executives that you've been trying to get a hold of. Before we get into that, thanks for checking out the video. My name's Jason. I run a company called Outbound Squad. And what we do at Outbound Squad is provide sales training to some of the fastest growing software companies out there. So your Gongs, your Ripplings, Medallias, Zooms of the world. I work with their BDRs and account executives to help them do one of the hardest things in sales: land that first meeting, generate some pipe, if you will. So today what we're going to talk about is LinkedIn. How does LinkedIn fit in? I think one of the things that's super important about Outbound is it isn't about the phone or email or social. It's really about doing all three of those things. And according to our latest data, Sales Loft has got some great stuff out there. Outreach has got some great stuff. Apollo, Zoom Info. Most of the sequencing data will tell you that your contact rate will go up about 3x if you combine phone, email, and social together. So I'm going to focus on LinkedIn today, but what I want to remind you of is that it's just as important to make the phone calls and send the emails to get in touch with the prospect. So LinkedIn, the common mistake that people make with LinkedIn is once they connect with a prospect, there's what's been referred to on LinkedIn as a connect and pitch. The rep will typically pitch slap the prospect as soon as they connect with a, here's what our company does. Would you like to schedule a demo? Here's my calendar link. So what we want to do is reverse engineer the process a bit and do what's called a pattern interrupt, which is a really fancy way of saying, let's do something unexpected that actually feels like more of a delighter than you being a pesky salesperson. So I'm going to walk you through the framework and I'm going to show you an example of what this looks like in action. And if you hang around until the end, I'm going to share how you can get access to some of these templates. So the 4-part framework works like this. Step number 1 is connect. The first thing that we have to do is get the prospect to accept our connection request. So there's a lot of theories on whether or not you should send a blank connection request or customize the connection request. I've seen both work. My advice would be, if you're going to send a blank connection request, make sure that your profile and headline are optimized so that when someone clicks through on your profile, or at least when they see the headline, they know that you're someone that they would like to connect with. If you're going to write something in the connection request, what I would recommend is don't write something unless it's personalized. So if you can copy and paste the connection request and send it to a bunch of other prospects, it's not personalized enough, you're better off leaving it blank. Step number 2 is give. So as soon as the prospect accepts our LinkedIn connection request, we want to give them something valuable. Ideally, that's a piece of content. I'm going to show you an idea of what that looks like and what you can do. 3 is invite. So I want to invite the prospect to something. So I've given them something valuable. The next piece, if your company runs webinars, has events, whether in person or digital, has a podcast, whatever it might be, you want to invite the prospect to check out something. And then 4, convert. That's the time in which we go in and ask for the meeting. So let's take a look at what this looks like in action. All right, so what we're looking at here is an example of some messaging back and forth that I've done with Medina here, who is VP of Global Sales Development at Harness. So I have not talked to Medina yet, but I wanted to show you an example of what this looks like. So I'm using a tool called Magical. One of the things I really like about Magical, I can save my templates. And the SBC stands for Sell by Chat. It's something that Taki Moore over at $1 Million Coach, it's a process that he taught me and called it Sell by Chat. So just to give him a little bit of credit, there's kind of 4 parts here. So the first thing that we wanted to do was connect. So I connected with her and said, hey, I saw that you checked out my post that I put up on this topic so that I can send some more content your way. Does that sound like your world at all? So there's a couple different ways that you can approach this first message, and I'm going to give you some examples here. So one thing, again, that's super cool about Magical is I have these pre-made templates, and it'll actually help kind of customize it as well. So here's an example of something that you could send to a prospect. So how would this apply to you? Let's say that you're not making LinkedIn content like I am, because I run a business, I create content, etc. What you can look for is people engaging with your company's content. What you can look for is prospects engaging with other content. You can look for commonalities in people that you follow. There's all kinds of things that you can do. But what I would look at is what is something that you could point out in that connection request? And if there isn't, again, you can leave it blank. But here's a template that you can use. Hey, saw you checked out this thing. I post content every day for people like you, or our company posts really great content on things like this, or we have some really good guides and in-depth XYZs on this. Thought it would be helpful. Let's connect. Or you send the blank connection request. That's step number one. Step number two, we look at this, and I'll show you an example here, is the give, okay? So once you connect with a prospect, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll ask them, hey, you checked out this post. Here's a lot of what I hear from people like you so that I can send more content your way. Does that sound like your world at all? Cool. Oh, by the way, I gathered our best content on landing meetings and building pipeline into a document that's free. So step number two, the give. There's a couple different ways that you can do this, and let me open that on a separate tab. So what I did is I put together a Google Doc that has a best of all of our content that we've posted. It's organized for leaders by topic. So this is just a hit list of all of our best LinkedIn content, podcast content, etc. There's some tactical content in here for reps. Now, do you need to do something this in depth? Maybe not. Maybe what you do is you have a one-page PDF and it's got your 4 or 5 best pieces of content specifically for that persona. And what I would recommend is bite-sized stuff. So if your company has case studies that aren't just pitching your company a ton, but actually helpful, if there's webinars where you guys have featured company experts, it doesn't even have to be content that your company created. It could be podcasts, webinars, white papers, etc., of other content out there from non-competing companies that would be helpful for your prospect. So this is a really great piece of content that you can do where, hey, I can share stuff with the prospect. I don't even have to be the person that created it, but you need to make sure that it addresses common challenges that your prospects tell you in sales calls that you have with them. So that's one of the first things that I do. And usually what I'll do is get a lot of responses like this. Hey, thanks for sharing that. So that's step number 2, I need to give. Step number 3 is I want to invite. And this is what that template looks like. Hey, by the way, we have a webinar coming up on this topic. I'm sure you're too busy to watch it. Do you mind if I share a quick recap with you afterwards? Right? And that's a little bit more about what that template looks like here. So if you have something to invite the prospect to or something else that you think that they would find value in checking out, it could be a live event, it could be a webinar. Again, it doesn't have to be one that your company hosts. It could be a third party that you think would be really relevant. The move here is, how can I invite them to this and then offer to do all the heavy lifting for them and actually put in work to timestamp the email and all of this other kind of stuff I'll show you in a second, to where you're not just inviting them to a webinar that's 1 hour that they're not going to watch, you're going to follow up with them afterwards. And that's the last step, the convert step. So this is an example, and this would be something you probably would send through email. Once you confirm the email address, hey, here's a recap of the webinar, highlight 1, highlight 2. We're helping a lot of other companies like yours in these areas open for a quick conversation to share more. So that's the 4-part framework here of I want to connect, I want to give something of value right away. Ideally, I want something to invite them to. If you don't have a lot of that stuff, you could skip that step, but I really like having something to invite them to that your marketing team is creating that is actually good, that you feel really good about inviting them to. And the 4th step is convert. You're going to follow up via email. You're going to recap what you think would be valuable to them in that piece of content or that webinar. Then you're going to ask for a meeting. So these templates you can get access to by checking out our LinkedIn Magical Pack, which is linked in the description of this. Thanks for checking out the video. Comment below if you have any questions, and would love to hear how this strategy works for you.